of the Down to Earth magazine.
We request our honorary mentor, Mr. Anupam Martins, to welcome and felicitate today's keynote speaker, Ms. Sunita Narayan. Thank you, sir.
We request Ms. Sunita Narayan to light the lamp in front of the portrait of Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martins.
Thank you. We now request Mr. Anupam Martins to deliver the welcome address and introduce the keynote speaker, Ms. Sunita Narayan.
Honorable keynote speaker, Ms. Sunita Narayan, Director, Ma'am Bharti Tolambia, Ms. Jagdeep Gupta, Principal, Mr. Prayag Singh Rajpurohit, members of the governing body of St. Stephen's School Society, friends and well-wishers of St. Stephen's, members of the staff, and my dear students. On behalf of the Governing Council of St. Stephen's School Society, Ajmer, and on my own behalf, it is my privilege to welcome you to the 22nd Dr. Deepa Martins Memorial Lecture. I welcome the in-person audience here, as well as those joining us via the YouTube live link or those watching this as a recorded address. Permit me to introduce our keynote speaker, Ms. Sunita Narayan. Ms. Sunita Narayan has been with the Center for Science and Environment since 1982. She is currently the Director General of the Center and the Treasurer of the Society for Environmental Communications and the editor of the fortnightly magazine Down to Earth. For her lifelong work, she was awarded the Padma Shri, one of the nation's highest civilian honors by the Government of India. She was also made a member of the Prime Minister's Council for Climate Change that decides on actions to address climate change impacts. In 2005, she chaired the task force at the direction of the Prime Minister to evolve an action plan for conservation in the country after the loss of tigers from a protected reserve. She was also a member of the National Ganga River Basin Authority, set up by the Prime Minister to develop effective measures to conserve and clean up the river. She was awarded the Stockholm Water Prize in 2005 and the Prince Albert II of Monaco Foundation Award for her work to build a literate society that values every raindrop and teaches society to learn from the frugality of our ancestors to build a water-prudent world. She was twice on the list of the world's top 100 public intellectuals put out by the Foreign Policy Prospect, and in 2016, Time magazine featured her as one of the 100 most influential people in the world for her advocacy on poor and the environment and climate change. In 2020, she was conferred the Edinburgh Medal for her leadership in championing climate justice for the poor and disenfranchised. Ms. Narayan, through her research and advocacy, has been influential in building public opinion on the challenges and solutions for the environment, particularly in the countries of the South. She has, in her over 4 decades of work, conducted in-depth research on the governance and management of the environment and directed campaigns on air pollution control, community water management, and pesticide regulation, among others. Her effort to combine science-based evidence and solutions with a pro-poor perspective to mainstream environmental concerns in public policy and society has been richly awarded in India and internationally. Her ideas have gained wide acceptance, leading to a slew of policy and regulatory measures that are built on the premise that sustainable development is not possible without inclusive and equitable growth. We are grateful to you, ma'am, for being with us today and traveling from Delhi to be with us to deliver this 22nd keynote address on climate change and what can we do about it. I'm pleased to share that St. Stephen's has been at the forefront of conservation efforts in Ajmer with practices including the planting and nurturing of over 7,000 trees in the forest area adjoining the school, rainwater harvesting, solar energy installations that cover most of our needs, encouraging eco-clubs, and green school efforts, to name a few. Permit me now to welcome Ms. Aruna Roy. Ms. Aruna Roy has been a co-host of this lecture series over the last 22 years and truly needs no introduction to anyone at St. Stephen's or anywhere else for that matter. A tireless campaigner to the right for information, labor rights, women's rights, and a political and social activist dedicated to fighting poverty and promoting development, Ms. Roy received her master's in English at the Indraprasth College in Delhi University and taught there for a year before a 7-year stint in the Indian Administrative Services. She then joined the Social Work and Research Center Tilonia and subsequently founded the Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, where she has championed the right to information and the right to work and food security, among many other key social issues linked to poverty, justice, participatory movements, and democratic rights. She's also a founder member of the governing body member of the School for Democracy, president of the National Federation of Indian Women, a council member of the Progressive International, and a civil society member of the Steering Committee for Open Governance Partnership. She served as a member of the National Advisory Council from 2004 to 2006 and again in 2010 to 2013. Her efforts were recognized with multiple awards, including the Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2000, the Lal Bahadur Shastri Award for Excellence in Public Administration in Academia and Management, the degrees of Doctors of Letters by the ITM University Gwalior and Doctorate by the University of Hyderabad. She has also been recognized as one of the 100 most influential women in the world by Time magazine in 2010, and more recently with the Dr. Paulos Mar Gregorius Award, the Ishwarchand Vidyasagar Gold Plaque, and the Quaide Millith Award for Probity in Public Life. She has authored 2 books on the RTI journeys, authored over 30 articles in journals and publications, among many other awards, recognitions, and professional affiliations. Most recently, she authored a wonderful memoir, The Personal is Political, which has been awarded as the Best Non-Fiction Award in the Author Awards in association with the Times of India. We welcome you, ma'am, to St. Stephen's and are grateful to you for your presence here despite returning late last night from Bangalore. I now provide a brief introduction to the Dr. Deepa Martins Memorial Lecture Series. Dr. Deepa Martins was the founder secretary of the Governing Council of St. Stephen's and its founding light from its conceptualization until we lost her to the Almighty in April 2003. This lecture series has, for the last 22 years, helped us immortalize her memory for posterity in a way that she would most relate to. Socially aware and informed conversation rooted in principles of love, compassion, and harmony, with a bias towards action. On 5th April, her birthday, over the last 22 years, the school and Ajmer community have benefited from visits of distinguished women in various fields who have shared their thoughts with us through this series. The topics of these lectures have been close to Dr. Deepa Martins' life and work, promoting communal harmony in a secular society, women's issues linked to health, constitutional rights, and gender equality, Kabir, inclusive learning, citizenship, and social activism through music, dance, theatre, art, journalism, literature, reading, working with the marginalized, and the stories of the Barefoot College and the MKSS. We've had the privilege to host luminaries, including Ms. Mrinal Pandey, Dr. C.S. Lakshmi, Ms. Indira Jaisingh, Ms. Madhu Kishwar, Dr. Shanta Sinha, Dr. Saida Hamid, Ms. Vrinda Grover, Ms. Kamla Bhasin, Dr. Meenakshi Gopinath, Dr. Malika Sarabhai, Professor Tripurari Sharma, Mr. Vinay Mahajan, and Ms. Charul Bharwada, Dr. Swarnmalya Ganesh, Ms. Shabnam Virmani, Ms. Maya Krishna Rao, Ms. Pamela Philippos, Dr. Gini Srivastav, Ms. Rajni Bakshi, Dr. Varsha Das, Mr. Bankar Roy, Ms. Aruna Roy, and Mr. Shankar Singh together, and Ms. Nirja Gopal Jayal. Ms. Aruna Roy has been a presence at these lectures all through these years, helping bring almost all of these guests to St. Stephen's. We are grateful in particular to Dr. Colonel C.S. Pant for having introduced us to Ms. Sunita Narayan and requested her presence at the school. We also welcome Ms. Jagdeep Gupta, who has accompanied her from Delhi, and welcome you to St. Stephen's as well. Every 6 years, the school brings out a compilation of these lectures called Deepalaya to capture these powerful messages for posterity. I welcome each and every one of you to St. Stephen's for this, our 22nd Dr. Deepa Martins Memorial Lecture. I join you in looking forward to an informed discourse on climate change and what we can do about it from one of India's most influential environmentalists. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, our guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy, social activist and recipient of the Raymond Magsaysay Award, is amidst us.
We request our director, Ms. Bharti Tolambia, to welcome and felicitate our guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy. Thank you, ma'am.
We now invite Ms. Shefali Martins to give an insight into the life and times of Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martins.
Good morning. We address the poignant theme of climate change today, and a glimpse into the life and times of Dr. Deepa Martins shows how she positively contributed to the metaphoric climate around her in holistic terms, including the social, the literary, and cultural dimensions, where the larger values of humanity found expression in each act and in each role of life that she embraced. A difference of opinion does not lead to a difference in hearts. It is important for a woman to recognize and stand for her identity. One has to keep the faith in the inherent goodness of people. A cloudy sky cannot block the sun within. These values of her life and work embrace and reflect the tenet of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam. Born to a large Kumauni family on April 5, 1951 in Ajmer, values of humanity and embracing the larger perspective were essential elements of Dr. Deepa's formative years. Shri Bhagwan Vallabh Pant, her father, and Srimati Lakshmi Devi, her mother, instilled in their youngest child values of commitment, sensitivity, and magnanimity. As a student of class 7, she would sit with her father's college students and learn grammar. Their home open to whoever wanted to come, study, and grow in their lives. Dr. Deepa would also inspire her friends towards reading, academic, and cultural pursuits. A few years down the line, continuing her family legacy, she too created a home where everyone was welcome to stay, study, and learn. Her exceptional communication skills in both English and Hindi, her prowess in debating and dramatics, her leadership skills as the president of the student body, and her perspective on the concerns of women formed the deep roots of her chosen vocation, education. She graduated in arts from Savitri Girls College in 1970 and completed her master's in English from Government College Ajmer in 1972. She then began her work as a lecturer in English and then went on to pursue her master's in Hindi, after which she joined her alma mater, Savitri College, and continued to work as a lecturer in Hindi 1975 onward. Going beyond the call of duty was a way of life for her. She was not only involved but absorbed in every dimension of the lives of her students and created safe spaces for them to learn and grow. When they didn't get space to study in their own houses, she opened her home to them. When they couldn't afford to buy or issue books, she would get them issued at her own risk, oftentimes paying back library dues for books the students had taken. She balanced the roles of teacher and friend in their lives and brought her knowledge of literature from the English and Hindi worlds to her classes and opened up avenues of interdisciplinary study in a time it wasn't common to do so. Her students to date remember her drawing parallels from Keats and Wordsworth in a Chayavad class of Hindi poetry. Similarly, contemporary social themes found their way into her classes and the street plays that she organized. She became and still is a role model for so many of them, and even after decades of their graduation, their point of reference of their college days continues to be her classes. In 1973, when she chose to marry her MA classmate Sri Gilroy Martins, she brought her traditions and ways of life into her marriage and co-created an exemplary household where different cultures coexist with immense mutual respect, with no side having to compromise on identity or beliefs. This unique act of faith, as relevant today as any other time, extended to her larger world through her deep passion for interfaith harmony. The personal was universal for her, and the universal extremely personal. She put relationships at the center of the environment she nurtured and propagated, where everyone was an equal, whether they were her colleagues, students, people she worked with and worked for, or the wide but close circle of family that she kept together. She co-founded organizations in Ajmer like the Mahila Samuh, which she also called the synonym of her being, Astitva ka Paryayvachi, as she used to say, an interfaith fraternal association, besides being actively involved with the PUCL, the Citizens Council, the Press Club, and other rights-based literary and social organizations. No event in Ajmer would be complete without her presence, her energy, and her active involvement, which also meant connecting others to the important social causes of her time. However differently we think, we should not stop communicating, she used to say. Samvad, having a dialogue, is central. This thought is cherished, adopted, and absorbed by her activist friends, who often use this as life's essential wisdom that keeps them going in difficult times amid differences of opinions. Her friends said that even those who would differ in opinion could not hold a personal difference with her, owing to her endearing ways and her quality of keeping everyone together. She lived life in its entirety and would be absorbed in the details of life, celebrating people around her. Wishing loved ones first on their birthdays or posting cards and baking cakes for them mattered as much as organizing a rally on a large scale. as did carrying food for her co-workers, whether in college or in her broader circle of grassroots activism. People who knew her well would often say that she has not 24 but 48 hours in a day because she made time for everything, with each aspect being a priority. More and more people would enter her circle of friends and co-workers every day. Here at St. Stephen's, she was not only involved in the day-to-day activities, but would meticulously plan all major events. She'd also take classes in the school, much to the delight of the students who loved her positivity, enthusiasm, and the unconditional love that she showered on them. Irrespective of her schedule, she always found time to read and research. Whether it was waking up at 4 a.m. to translate works of Kabir, or staying up to read literary magazines, literary pursuits were often her me time, and she contributed significantly through both poetry and prose. She remained a student in the school of life and opened herself to new experiences like taking a computer course, and inspired others also to keep pace with technology back in the late 90s and early 2000s when computers were still relatively new. In her life of 52 years, through her vast expanse of work, her humility, compassion, generosity, and academic brilliance, along with her positivity, happiness, sensitivity, the ability to reach out, and an unwavering determination to create a just and equitable world, Dr. Deepa made her unique place in the hearts of people. Dr. Deepa, true to her name, kindled the light of love and sensitivity, propagated a culture of communication and dialogue, and left a legacy of conversations and acts that continues to strengthen the belief in leading a wholesome life of sharing and giving, and where the power of one's will tides over life's biggest challenges. To quote from one of her poems, "अपने ही भीतर खोजना हर प्रश्न का उत्तर, हर समस्या का समाधान, और तुम पाओगे कि अंधेरे का गाढ़ापन उजाले को और भी उजलाता है। प्रश्नों की उधेड़बुन से ही अंकुरित होते हैं जीवन सत्य, और अपने मन की ऊर्जा से अधिक सप्राण और कुछ नहीं होता, और कुछ नहीं होता." Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. We now request Ms. Sunita Narayan to deliver the keynote address on the topic Climate Change, What We Can Do.
So thank you, Anupam ji, thank you, Shifali, thank you everyone who's present in the room today, and particularly I'm really honored to see Aruna ji. I have been a long-standing fan of her work, so I'm so happy that she's here with us today. So thank you for making the effort. And thank you everyone for inviting me to speak to you today. So what I thought I would do is to share with you a little bit about what I think is the challenge of environment in our world. And then what is it that we need to do, both as a country, but as all of us. To begin with, I wanted to share with you why I started working in the field of environment. I was in a school in Delhi, a school just like this. And at that time, and this is really a long time ago, there was no real understanding of the issue of environment. But we started with a students group. A few of us came together from different schools of Delhi. As a matter of coincidence, we set up a group called Kalpvriksh. It was a students' activist group. And at that stage, Delhi was very different, but there was a lot of effort to build roads in Delhi, and the Commonwealth Games were coming up, and trees were going to be cut. And as student activists, we decided to stop the cutting of trees in Delhi. And it was successful. And we did not really understand the value of trees, but we understood that these were important and this needed to be done. Then my colleagues, my young student friends, all of us decided, we had heard about the Chipko movement in the Himalayas. This was a movement, we were in Delhi, Himalayas are very far away, but what we heard was that this was a movement where women had come together to protect their trees. And this was a movement, and it was very dramatic because it was a movement where one day the women were alone in the village, all the men had gone away, and woodcutters, people had come, पेड़ काटने के लिए लोग आए थे. And गांव की जो औरतें हैं उनने डिसाइड किया कि नहीं हम पेड़ नहीं काटने देंगे. And what did they do? They did what was called the Chipko movement, which is they hugged the trees so the woodcutters could not reach the trees. Now this was the news that we had in Delhi. And the question was, we were young students, very much like you, why would women in the Himalayas care about their trees so much? They would stop the woodcutters from cutting it. My understanding was, very much like most of us, is, oh, we in cities care about our green spaces. We care about our trees. The villagers are illiterate. What do they know about the trees that need to be saved? So why were the women protecting their trees to the extent that they would say, over my dead body will you cut the tree? When I went there, my perspectives on environment changed completely. I traveled, I understood that for the women of the Himalayas, the trees were not like for people like me in the city. These were not beautiful objects. They are beautiful in a city, and please don't get me wrong, I'm not asking you to go and cut every tree in a city. They have a value in a city environment. But the value for the women of the Himalayas, the value for the women as you drive through the so-called desert of Rajasthan, where there is more tree density than you will see in the alluvial plains of the Indo-Gangetic plains, the value of the tree is the value for livelihoods. It's about survival. It's about their ability to build an economy. So why were the trees so important for the women? One, they provided fodder. They provided them with crucial fodder at the time they needed it, so that they didn't have to trek long distances. They could lop the oak tree like you lop the khejuri tree. The khejuri tree is a survival tree of Rajasthan because you can lop it, it grows back again. The khejuri also is a nitrogen fixer. So you can plant the tree and it enriches the soil. The oak in the Himalayas is a tree which also holds the soil. So when it rains, it does not flood. It stops the landslide. So their understanding of trees was the science that we have understood today. They taught me that way back to tell me this is not about pretty trees. This is about survival. And most importantly, they told me the trees were important for them. And this was a shock for me. I was in an elite school of Delhi, completely unaware of these realities, was that this was where they got their moment of privacy when they had to go out in the morning. Because at that time, there were no toilets in homes. So the tree was so crucial for them, from their moment of privacy to their livelihood of fodder, to the fact that it protected the soil that would not then flow away, because these are steep Himalayan slopes, which we know every time it rains, you get floods and all soil fertility and soil erosion happens. So there was a deep science in their life on the reason why they protected the trees. And that belief has stayed with me always. So the politics of environment, the reason we need to protect the environment is because it provides you the foundation of life. Without soil fertility, you cannot get agriculture. You do not get soil fertility until you protect the forest around you, which gives you the leaf, the fodder, the manure, which you can put back in the soil. You need the forest to hold the water so that when it rains, it does not flood. You need to build your cities as Ajmer has done. The most beautiful lake of Ajmer. It is not just a recreation place. It is a place for you to hold the rainwater when the rain falls. So it is not just every drop of water you're protecting, but you're channelizing it into the lake so that it can then make sure that your groundwater is recharged. That was the science. That is the reason why environment is so critical in our lives. Now, this learning has really something that we need to now, if I bring you to today, and then take you to the future. Today, we are in a crisis. And let's be very clear about this. All of you, the young faces I see around me, are going to inherit a world which is warmer. It's right now 1.2 degrees warmer post the industrial age of 1850 to now. But there is every indication that the amount of carbon dioxide that we have pumped into the atmosphere will make sure that we reach 1.5 degrees centigrade rise by the end of this decade. Now, why does it matter? And what is carbon dioxide? What is this? Why is it so problematic? Carbon dioxide is nothing more than something that gets emitted when you burn largely fossil fuels. What is fossil fuels? Everything that we today know is the source of energy in our world. We use coal, it emits carbon dioxide. Why do we use coal? We use coal to run our power plants, which then provides us the energy that we need in our homes. We need to run our factories. We need to build our economies. We use oil to run our cars. Those cars are run because we need transportation to run our economies. The trouble with this gas is that it is a very long life gas. So when you talk about, and I will talk to you about it, the challenge of air pollution in our cities, that pollutant is still got a short life. But carbon dioxide is one of them which once emitted stays in the atmosphere. So you're talking about something that you emit today will stay in the atmosphere for the next 150 years. Now think about it like this. You have one atmospheric space. Countries for their economy have emitted, they have burnt coal, they have used oil, they have emitted carbon dioxide. It has gone into that atmospheric space and it remains there. So 150 years ago, somebody who used a coal furnace in the United States to build their first smelter plant, that carbon dioxide is still in the atmosphere. Now that's the challenge. The reason is, think now of it as one atmospheric space. It's a common atmospheric space. Now, in that common atmospheric space, you emitted 150 years ago. Your emission is still in the atmosphere. I need to emit today. I need to grow now. But there is no space left in that atmospheric space. So what do we do? Now, this is where, and Aruna ji, I don't know if you remember this, but you and I were together in Jhabua. कितने साल हो गए मुझे अब तो याद भी नहीं है अरुणा, मगर बहुत साल हो गए. अनिल और मैं और आप सब झबुआ में थे. और when we went to Jhabua, Anil and I, my colleague Anil Agarwal, हम लोग ये समझने की कोशिश कर रहे थे कि इस देश के अंदर पेड़ कैसे लगे. बड़ी आप सोचेंगे कि बहुत ये तो बड़ी छोटी सी समस्या है. क्या समस्या है? पेड़ कैसे लगे? पेड़ को आप लगाइए और वो उगेगा, क्या प्रॉब्लम है? मगर अगर इतनी ही बात होती तो इस देश के अंदर जितने भी वृक्षारोपण के कार्यक्रम थे, और इतने कार्यक्रम रहे हैं, आपके हर गांव के अंदर कोई हजारों पेड़ होने चाहिए थे. मगर आज है नहीं. जब अनुपम जी मुझे ले गए और आपने जो वृक्षारोपण पीछे किया है उसको दिखाया, मैंने देखा कि किस एफर्ट से किया है. क्योंकि उस पेड़ को लगाने के लिए एक आपको जुड़ना पड़ेगा उसके साथ, आपको उसका फायदा भी मिलना पड़ेगा. तो जब अनिल और मैं झबुआ भी गए और हम लोग बाकी की जगह भी घूम रहे थे ये समझने के लिए कि पेड़ कैसे लगे इस देश के अंदर, तो उसको मैं कहती हूँ द गोट फिनोमेना. एंड sometimes when I'm explaining this, it's hard for me to explain a common atmospheric space to a lot of, very scientific people. And I say to them, think about the goat. Think about the goat in a village. That is the world's atmospheric space. Now, in a village, forest, there is no way that you can protect the forest village, the village of the forest, if you don't plan for the goat of the poorest person in the village. क्योंकि अगर आपने उस बकरी के लिए चारा नहीं दिया और अगर उस बकरी वाले को कुछ फायदा नहीं मिला, तो आप कोई भी जंगलात की दीवार बना लीजिए, आप कोई भी फेंस लगा लीजिए, आपका जंगल नहीं बचेगा. वो तभी बचेगा जब उस औरत आदमी को कुछ फायदा मिलेगा. और मुश्किल की चीज होती है क्योंकि ये एक सामूहिक चीज है. ये इंडिविजुअल तो है नहीं कि मैंने अपने घर का बगीचा बचा लिया, उसके ऊपर फेंस लगा ली. ये एक सामूहिक चीज होती है. आज इस देश के अंदर सबसे बड़ी क्राइसिस है ऑफ द कॉमन्स. द फॉरेस्ट आर द वर्ल्ड, दिस कंट्रीज बिगेस्ट कॉमन्स. आप कैसे बचाएंगे जब तक हर गांव को फायदा नहीं मिले? उसी चिपको की औरत की बात सुनिए, उसी गांव की बात सुनिए जिसने अपनी बकरी को भेजना बंद किया क्योंकि उसको भी उस गांव, जब जंगल बचता है तो घास आती है, उस घास काटने का जो फायदा मिला वो उसको मिला, उसको उसकी माइनर फॉरेस्ट प्रोड्यूस का फायदा मिला, उसको उसके लकड़ी काटने का फायदा मिला. अगर सबको फायदा मिलेगा तो सब बचाएंगे. अब इसी प्रिंसिपल को लेके अगर आप क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात करें जो हमने करी, 90 की दशक है ये, जब पूरी दुनिया में बात हो रही थी कि क्लाइमेट चेंज का जो एक बहुत बड़ा संकट आ रहा है उसको हम कैसे उसका उपाय ढूंढेंगे. और उस संकट के लिए पूरे यूएन की गवर्नमेंट्स मिल रही थी, यूएन के अंदर बात चल रही थी, रियो के अंदर मीटिंग होनी थी 1992 में, जब पूरी दुनिया के लोग आएंगे और बात करेंगे कि किस तरह से एक फ्रेमवर्क बने कि हम अपने कॉमन एटमॉस्फेरिक स्पेस को बचा सकें। उस वक्त जो विकसित देश थे, the rich countries of the world, the countries whose development had already happened, the countries who had already emitted into the atmosphere were saying, we have the right. Now countries like India, which need the right to development, do not have the right to develop. This is where all of us played a big role in bringing the goat phenomena to the world, showing the world that you could not protect a common atmospheric space until the rights of every country was secured. Until there was a common entitlement, an equal entitlement of every country over the common atmospheric space. And so you needed a principle of equity and justice to be enshrined in that agreement. And that equity and justice is really where we have learned in everything we have done that unless that is done, you cannot get sustainability. So, in 1992, when the Framework Convention on Climate Change was agreed to, and all governments of the world signed on that document agreed on the principle of climate justice. It said common but differentiated responsibilities. And so it argued that the rich countries of the world would have to reduce their emissions so that the poor countries of the world would have the right to development. So the right to development was enshrined in the Framework Convention on Climate Change. However, it was also agreed that if every Indian wants to develop like an American, we will need at least 100 new planets. There is not enough space for us to grow like them. So the agreement was that they will reduce, but there will be money and technology provided so that we can develop differently. So we need development, but we do not need development where we first pollute and then have to clean up, because we do not have the resources to be able to first pollute and then clean up. So in that was the big compact of the world in 1992. Now the unfortunate part of the world is that for the last many decades, we have only worked hard to remove one thing, the principle of equality, the principle of historical injustice in that document. So today we are at a stage where the rich have not reduced their emissions, countries like China have grown, and there is no space in the atmosphere for us to live. It is in that context that we need to talk about what do we do. And that's what I want to talk about now. Because we are at a very important time where we need to understand that for us, climate change is not the reason we will act. But if we develop differently, we will improve our local air pollution, we will improve our local economies, we will redefine what we mean by growth, and we will also help the world. It is in our interest. So, मैं जब क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात करती हूँ, मैं देख रही हूँ आप लोगों के फेसेस पे आप सोच रहे हैं पता नहीं क्या बड़ी बड़ी साइंटिफिक बात होती है क्लाइमेट चेंज की, और हिंदी में इसका जो शब्द है ये भी थोड़ा सा मुझे तो उटपटांग लगता है, जलवायु परिवर्तन। मगर अगर आप क्लाइमेट चेंज की बात करें और मैं कहूँ कि आपको क्या समझ है क्लाइमेट चेंज की, और मुझसे बार बार ये एक प्रश्न पूछा जाता है, जब मैं बाहर जाती हूँ, विदेश जाती हूँ, तो मुझे यही पूछा जाता है, आपके लोग कोई समझता भी है क्लाइमेट चेंज? आपके किसान, आपके गरीब समझते हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज? और उनको लगता है कि जब वो पढ़ लेते हैं, लिख लेते हैं, तभी समझते हैं क्लाइमेट चेंज। और मैं ये समझाने की कोशिश करती हूँ कि हमारे लिए क्लाइमेट चेंज एक हकीकत है. इट इज अ रियलिटी. Why is it a reality? Because we are seeing the weather change in our world today. Last year, and I'm sure Ajmer had the same situation, you had the hottest year possible. And this year, the Met Department has already told us and warned us that the months of May and June, we will have successive heat waves. Now, I'm talking to people in the desert. I'm talking to people who have lived with 50 degrees centigrade rise, 50 degrees temperatures. But yet, I'm saying this to you because this is going to go beyond what is today called human tolerance. Temperatures are going to increase even beyond what we have seen in our world. More than that, we are seeing today a phenomena called the wet bulb phenomena, where not only are temperatures rising, but humidity is also rising in our cities. And as a result of it, we are not able to, our skin is not able to breathe. Remember why people in the desert wear clothes as loose as they do? Because the skin has to breathe. That is what temperature control in a body is all about. But with the wet bulb phenomena, which is now getting more and more understood scientifically, we are seeing higher humidity and an inability, therefore, for the skin to breathe. But more than that, last summer, my colleagues were investigating something which is really worrying. So, in Ajmer, and you are lucky in Ajmer, you have a beautiful water body. You have still greenery around you. And I would love to go back and do this research. So in Ajmer, I'm sure the day is very hot, but nighttime temperatures drop. Now, what we don't understand is the difference between day and night temperature is so crucial for the human body. In Delhi now, and in many metropolitan cities of India, and my colleagues have done this very detailed research to understand, they are finding that the temperature difference between daytime and nighttime is not anything anymore. Earlier on, the day used to be very hot, but the temperatures at night used to decline. Now, we don't understand that because we go into our houses and put on the air conditioner and forget about it. But when we looked at this, we found that the maximum number of deaths were happening to people at night. And now the Lancet has come up with a detailed research explaining why for a human body it is important for temperatures at night to decline because the human body needs time to cool down. However hot the day may be, but if the temperatures at night go down, the human body gets time to cool down, and that in turn helps it to be able to cope the very next day. Now, why are temperatures not declining? And this is the lesson for the future for us. Why are temperatures not declining in our cities? Because of a combination. One hand, climate change, temperatures are rising. On the other hand, we are building our cities with more and more concrete. Our roads do not have any green spaces. We have no water bodies to absorb the heat. We have more and more motorization happening. And the more we motorize, the more the heat of the cars make sure that the temperatures keep rising. It fills the temperatures, the heat in the atmosphere. And more than that, the more air conditioners we use because it gets hotter, the more the heat of that air conditioners is also making sure that cities are getting warmer at night. Now this is a crisis. But this is the opportunity for us to rework what we mean by cities. What is the solution to this? The solution for this is so that we build our cities in a way that we can make sure that, one, we build our homes so that we insulate our homes. We build it so that it's in the design of the sun. And this is not just the rich and the elite of our country, but the poor of our country who understand the science of courtyards, who understand the science of ventilation, who understand the science of building with the sun, not against the sun, that their science becomes our practice. We incorporate the knowledge into the modern architecture that we build in our cities. We make sure that our cities have water bodies so that they can hold the water. And this becomes even more crucial because with climate change, you will see more rain in fewer number of rainy days. Now, if I was to ask you, how many hours in a year does it rain in India? You will be stunned to know that we only get rain in 100 hours in a year. 100 hours in a year out of that 8,000 some hours that we have. That's the average of rain we get. And yet, it is that rain that will need to be protected, held, and made sure that we can use it in the long periods. Now, this is again where a lot of the learning that I have came from Rajasthan. Again, Arunaji, it was a drive with Anupamji, Anil, and me. We were driving to Bikaner, to Shibu's ashram. And driving there, we found these structures on the road, which were like upside down spaceships. And one after the other, we found them on the road, and we didn't understand. Again, what do we know about this? But being journalists, we were curious. We stopped the car, we got off, and we asked the villagers, what is this? And they looked at us, as they would in all circumstances, about how ignorant you are as people coming from a city. You don't even know that this is how we protect. This is our underground well. Now, this was not an underground well as the way we knew it. This was a tanka. All it was that you made a small catchment, you made a well in the middle, you covered the well, and the water that fell on that catchment went into the well. And as we understood this more, we understood how every roof in Rajasthan was a catchment. How every hill in Rajasthan was the agor of that catchment. So that you made sure that every drop of rain was protected. And this was also the time when, on one hand, we went to Jaisalmer and we understood how a huge city like Jaisalmer was built on just 50 millimeters of rain. And then we went to Cherrapunji, and going to Cherrapunji, we understood how you had a situation where you had 14 meters of rain. This is 14 meters. If it rains in Cherrapunji, this entire hall would fill up. 50 millimeters of rain versus 14 meters of rain. Yet in the guest house in Cherrapunji, it says, rain is scarce. This is a water scarce area. Please use water carefully. So, 14 meters of rain versus 50 millimeters of rain, you can have water scarcity and water surplus. So it's about our relationship with that water that we have. It's our ability to build a society where we can respect every drop of rain. We can recharge it. And now, because Anupam asked me to speak on climate change and solutions, I'll bring you back. Why is it important today? Because today, as I said, with climate change, you will get more rain in fewer number of rainy days. So you have 100 hours on an average of rain in the country. Now, you will have fewer number of hours, but you will have more rain. This is exactly what we are seeing across cities of India. Last year, and my colleague Jagdeep is here, she can tell you with what frustration we have to operate. Every time it rains in Delhi, we have to close our office because it floods. We have not built the drainage systems so that we can hold the water, we can absorb it, and we can make sure we take it to a tank, a pond, an underground reservoir so that that water is not lost. That is the situation. I don't know how many of you will remember, but a year ago in Bengaluru, one of the richest cities of India, you had this sight of people with Mercedes-Benz in their houses, but using boats to be evacuated and tractors to be evacuated out of their houses. That is what is climate change. Now the answer to that and the solution to that is really what we know needs to be done. We know that we need to build our cities so that we can have more water bodies, local water bodies. We don't have to bring our water from long distances and then take our waste long distances. We need to make sure that our cities can depend on local water harvesting systems. Our villages already do so, but need to do much more of it. Recharge every drop of rainwater that comes, so that you provide the drainage. You can live with the floods. You can survive the long periods of drought. You can also make sure that your city gets cooler. So you do all that. And you have to understand that you can do all that if you keep one principle and only one principle alive, which that nothing can be done unless it is inclusive, unless you provide for the needs of all. And this is where I want to give you my last example, because it's a very interesting example of how I learned about inclusivity. Two last examples. So Anupam said that I live in Delhi. Now when I talk about Delhi and you will hear Delhi, you will say, अरे वहाँ तो बहुत pollution है, प्रदूषण है, कैसे सांस लेती हैं आप? यही सवाल मुझसे बार बार पूछा जाता है, आप सांस कैसे लेती हैं दिल्ली में? और अच्छा सवाल है, क्योंकि दिल्ली के अंदर प्रदूषण जरूर बहुत है, मगर प्रदूषण का समाधान क्या है? प्रदूषण का आज समाधान दिल्ली में है। जब हम लोगों ने अब 2000 की बात कर रही हूँ, जब हमने बात करी तो हम लोगों ने कहा कि आप ये जो डीजल और पेट्रोल को साफ करते करते आपका पोल्यूशन तो बढ़ता ही जा रहा है, आप गैस लाइए, क्योंकि अगर आप सीएनजी लाएंगे और उससे बसेस चलाएंगे आपका प्रदूषण बहुत कम होगा, और उससे कम हुआ। मगर आज दिल्ली का जो सवाल है, आज हर शहर का जो सवाल है, वो बस एक ही है कि अगर इसी तरह से निजी गाड़ियां आती रहीं तो आपके शहर का प्रदूषण हवा आप कभी साफ नहीं कर पाएंगे। हमने हर गाड़ी को साफ किया। आज BS6 गाड़ी दिल्ली में चलती है, इलेक्ट्रिक गाड़ी भी चलती है दिल्ली में, मगर जितनी गाड़ियों की संख्या बढ़ेगी उतनी सड़क के अंदर संख्या कम होती जाएगी। आप फ्लाईओवर बनाते जाएं, आप लोग सब इंटरनेट पे काम करते हैं, आप जानते हैं कि आपके पास कितनी भी ब्रॉडबैंड हो मगर आप इस्तेमाल कर लेंगे। वो ही हो रहा है हमारे शहरों के अंदर। हम फ्लाईओवर बनाते जा रहे हैं, गाड़ियां उसमें भरती जा रही हैं, प्रदूषण बढ़ता जा रहा है। और दिल्ली की संख्या के आंकड़े अगर मैं आपको बताऊं, यही बड़ी इंपॉर्टेंट चीज है। Only 10% of Delhi drives a car today. Only 10%. And Delhi is one of the richest cities of India. 20% of Delhi drives a two-wheeler. The bulk of people in the city of Delhi still take a metro, a bus, walk, or cycle. The question today is, the air of Delhi, think about it like the air shed of the world, the common atmospheric space. The air of Delhi, the air shed of Delhi is full of pollution. Now, I drive a car. Where is the space for the remaining 80% to drive a car? Yet they have an equal right to the car. So the only way we can protect the airshed of Delhi is if we can do what the world was supposed to do, which is we redesign mobility so that you move people and not cars. Now that is easier said, that is more difficult, but it is possible. Because it is not about bringing an electric bus into the city. It is about redesigning roads so that you have pavement space, so that you have lights, so that you can cross the road at night. If you take a bus, it drops you on one side on one time and it drops you on the other side on the other side. Very simple. But in Delhi, you can't cross the road. So how can you take a bus? Or at least most people will think twice about crossing a road. So these are the things that teach us that unless you redesign mobility, that it meets the needs of all, you cannot have the right to clean air for some. I keep getting asked this question in winter of Delhi, ki which air purifier should I buy? And I keep telling everyone, buy any air purifier you want, you will still need to breathe the air of Delhi. So no air purifier is going to protect you. You need to find a way that you can bring down the pollution for all, which means the rich will have to reinvent their mobility so that the mobility can be fixed for everyone. It's different from water, because water we bottle and drink. तो हमें कोई फर्क ही नहीं पड़ता, हम तो बोतल बंद पानी पीते हैं, हमारी नदियां मर जाएं. हाँ ठीक है, दुख होता है, ये बात सही है, दुख होता है, मगर दुख ही होता है ना. कुछ हद तक बीमारियां होती हैं, मगर वो तो गरीब को होती हैं, हमें थोड़ी होती हैं. हम तो बोतल बंद पानी पीते हैं, मगर हम हवा को बोतल नहीं पी सकते, अभी तक तो नहीं पी सकते. मुझे नहीं पता आपके ज़माने तक क्या होगा कि आप सब ऑक्सीजन सिलेंडर लेके घूमेंगे, मगर अभी तक तो ये हालत नहीं आई है. और मैं तो इतना ही प्रे करूंगी कि ऐसी हालत नहीं आए. मगर जहाँ तक नदी का सवाल है, जहाँ तक पानी के प्रदूषण का सवाल है, वहाँ पर भी एक चीज़ याद रखिए कि हमारे शहरों में हमने इस तरह से नदियों को प्रोटेक्ट करने की कोशिश करी है कि हम खाली कुछ लोगों के यहाँ जहाँ फ्लश है हम फ्लश करते हैं, हम फॉरगेट करते हैं, हमको कोई फ़र्क ही नहीं पड़ता है कि नदियों तक हमारा प्रदूषण किस हालत में जा रहा है. मगर यही नए तरीकों से हमें कुछ काम करना पड़ेगा जिससे वी कैन एक्चुअली मेक श्योर दैट वी कैन treat our water, we can reuse the sludge, the sewage, and we can recharge it. And this is really where I want to talk about my final story on the waste of our cities, the garbage in our cities, because that is very much part of the challenge that we have. The fact, again, my learning, and I'm constantly telling you my learning because I hope you will keep learning with me and you will learn like I have learned from experiences on the ground. So I went to Kerala. Now Kerala, as you know, is a very, very literate state. Women there speak loud, people speak loudly about their rights. So the people of the city of Thiruvananthapuram were taking their waste to a village outside the city. All cities do that because all designated waste sites are always at the outskirts of a city where a village is there or poor people live. Now there was a woman mayor in the city and there was a panchayat head was also a woman in the village. The village said, over our dead body, will you bring the city waste to our village? We will not allow you to bring garbage and dump it in our village because it is polluting our groundwater, making it difficult for us to breathe. So this is the not in my backyard concept. But this time the not in my backyard was coming from the poor, not the rich. Because you don't want a garbage dump next to your house. You're rich enough to say, not in my backyard. But the poor never had that choice. Kerala different now, other parts of India all different. Nowhere can a city municipality find a garbage dump outside the city because people protest. But they started in Kerala. Now as a result of it, the city had nowhere to send its garbage. So what did they do? They filled the garbage in trucks and sent them to Karnataka. In Karnataka, the Pollution Control Board would call us that we have confiscated this truck, we have found this coming, and then of course there was a huge hue and cry and those trucks were stopped. Now what would the city of Tiruvananthapuram do? It would drown in its own garbage. So it found, and it had very good leadership at that time, it found that the answer to it was, let us segregate our waste. Very simple. 60% of the waste in our houses, sometimes even 70%, is wet waste. The rest is only dry, plastic and paper. It is growing, but it is still, in all data showing across India, it is still a 70-30 ratio. Now, if you don't mix the waste, you can reprocess the waste. That waste does not remain waste. It becomes a resource. So you take the wet waste separately and you can do biogas from it, you can do bio-CNG from it in which you can run your cars, you can do compost with it, you can do a whole lot of things if you separate out the wet from the dry. And then the dry gets recycled, reprocessed. Now this lesson also is something that we are now learning has to be part of the new green economy that we build. The new green economy has to be one in which that principle of inclusivity is critical because you cannot have sustainability unless it is inclusive. It is not a technology issue, it is a politics issue, political issue. I'm not talking about party politics, I'm talking about societal politics. But with that, you build an economy in which you build on local resources. You build on the waste to become a resource. Every drop of the excreta, the shit that leaves our household, gets reused and reutilized as soil enrichment. Every bit of resource that we can grow on our land is something that provides nutrition as much as livelihood. You build a wood-based economy so that you can grow trees, so that you can cut them and then regrow them. You reduce the use of cement and aluminium because you replace it with renewable resource. You do that in a way that you do this more decentralized, more local. The same principle, harvest every drop of water, recharge your groundwater, do it at the household level. Make sure that you do what you have done so wonderfully in this school. Build your solar roof. Every house has a solar roof so that you feed into the grid, but you also utilize it for your own needs during daytime. The grid becomes your storage unit to pull back during the night. You do that by making sure that you do water conservation in every village of India so that that water provides livelihood. That then provides resilience. Because today the biggest challenge we're going to have is to make sure that we can make sure that all of India is both has well-being, has sustainability, and also has livelihoods. And that, to me, is really where the lesson of the mistakes of climate change, the mistakes of how the rich have built the world, cannot be the way that we move forward. Thank you very much for asking me, and thank you for listening to me so patiently. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. We request our guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy, to address the gathering.
Today and every day that I've come here to remember Deepa has been very special for me. She has left behind a legacy which is extraordinary. A legacy that is important for all of us, not only in Ajmer, but in this country. I remember everything she's done, but I remembered her very sharply when we did the Gandhi walk on the 30th of January and remembered her for her contribution to interfaith harmony. She's done so many things. She wanted to build an ecosystem in which we all saw ourselves, as was mentioned by Sunita, with tolerance, with affection, with inclusion. And at that day, I thought of her with so much love, so much affection, and I missed her very deeply. But she's left that legacy for us, and we continue with it. I also want to thank Gilroy for setting up this school, a fantastic institution, with Deepa, which continues to house these lectures, and for the ecosystem she's built in not only fostering all these values in society, but in her own family. For Anupam, who's continued with the tradition that she set up for discipline, for continuity in so many ways with the school and his concerns. For Shefali, who's one of us, who writes with the same grace as Deepa, thinks in plurality like she did, and is part of everything that we all do. So the ecology of humanity is what Deepa left for us, and we must remember her for this particularly today. Sunita's very, very good lecture, brilliant lecture, on how the environment is not only outside of us, but in us. Every single decision we take either takes it forward or brings it back. Do I have a car? Do I have a car just for myself? Do I share a car? Do I not have a car? Do I take a bus? How do I go to work is a political issue, is an environmental issue. How many of us take it like that? So to me, Sunita's lecture gave all the messages I knew, but always a little in addition. And I would like to thank her very much indeed for saying what she did and for doing what she has all these years with very great determination and singular purpose. She is one of our most important women, and that she's come today to talk for the Deepa is an honor for Ajmer, for all of us, and a great joy to me. Thank you, Sunita. She talked about commons, and I must say that I've just come back from Bangalore, where we organized a memorial lecture for Air Marshal Day, in which we invited Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma to come and talk to us. The first cosmonaut. Young people, in 1984, he was the first cosmonaut, Indian cosmonaut, to circle the country. And you may all remember that when Indira Gandhi asked him, "Aapko Bharat kaise lag raha hai antariksh se?" And he said, "Sare jahan se acha, ye Hindustan hamara." That was his famous line, which we all remembered. He came and addressed, and he also talked about commons. He talked about equity and justice. He talked about how, when you look at space, today they're talking about colonizing space. Go to the moon first and put the American flag there or the Russian flag there or any other flag there. How can you colonize space? How can we lose the moon? It's a common space. So from that he drew conclusions very similar to Sunita. And I'm so happy to note that no matter where we are fighting for the right things in the world, for sharing and for all the things that the earth can give us, which is what trees give us, what lakes give us, what the environment gives us, what the atmosphere gives us. We are all talking the same language, and it was really inspiring for me to hear. I never expected Wing Commander Rakesh Sharma to talk about equity and justice, but that's all he did. And I was so, so excited. The question of survival, we all think of survival today only in terms of how much will I get. But the how much depends on how much there is. If there isn't anything to give, whatever you strive for, you're not going to get it. So this whole acquisitive society, which we all are a part, we want this, we want that, we want more and more and more and more. But nature is limited. Nature cannot reproduce itself. Up to a point, yes, but only with your help. So what we see today is this battle with acquisitive, the acquisitive world population thinking that it can exploit. The word we use often is exploit. And I think we are actually talking, on the other hand, about survival, about bonding, and how we can bond with each other, how we can see that each one of us has something to give. Sunita talked about very practical things and very useful things at the end of her lecture. Just about an hour's drive away from here is the Barefoot College, in which they deal with waste management, they deal with solar energy, they deal with rainwater harvesting. And for those of you who are interested to go there and see exactly how it is done, there's something that's been doing it for years right next door. So you can go and see how it can actually be put on ground and how that can be transferred to all of you. I don't want to talk too much, but I really want to end with saying that mobility, the whole aspect of mobility, cars, is totally within your control. Today, if you decide that you're not going to come alone in a car, that you're not going to buy a car, but you're going to use public transport, if you're going to put pressure on the government to say, buy a bus, we don't want cars, make more buses. This was a huge political issue even in the United States way back when pressure was put on them to make more cars and the manufacture of buses was stopped. So I think today, environment and politics are not far away from each other. As we all know, every issue is linked to some decision government takes. So we must all put pressure on them to give us better roads and better buses. And all of you young people in this room can contribute actually physically to things like waste management, to things like rainwater harvesting, to things like solar, and to things like demanding transport, which really looks at buses. She's so right in saying that unless the infrastructure exists, nothing can deliver. And that infrastructure is decided by a government, and that government runs on politics. So you have to voice your concerns. I'm going to just end by saying again that I owe deep sense of gratitude and love for Deepa, for setting us all on the course of thinking about these things every year, at least once, as a collective in Ajmer. We do many things all through the year, but today, when I think of Deepa, I think of her with the compassion and love that she left for us, and the determination to carry on. कभी थकती नहीं थी, कभी उन्होंने ना कहा, और हर जगह पहुंच जाती थी, और हर किस्म के मुद्दे में करुणा और दया के साथ जुड़ती थी. दृढ़ता तो था, सोच विचार में दृढ़ता था, मगर उनके हाव भाव में करुणा और प्यार के साथ हमारे साथ रही. मुझे ये मौका देते हैं हर साल अनुपम और शेफाली, इसके लिए बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया कि एक बार फिर इस परिवार के साथ जुड़ने के लिए, आप सबके साथ मिलकर एक आवाज़ उठाने के लिए कि दीपा हमारे बीच में अभी भी है और रहेगी. और मैं गिलरॉय के लिए भी कहना चाहती हूँ, वो भी रहेंगे, और उनके दोनों के सोच के वजह से अजमेर के जो ये माहौल है, इसका जो पर्यावरण है, वो जो पर्यावरण राजनीतिक हो या पर्यावरण ऐसे पर्यावरण हो जिसमें हम लोग मोहब्बत, प्यार और करुणा के साथ जिए, उसके लिए उन्होंने जो दिया है, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया और आदाब. और आप सबको मेरी तरफ से नमस्ते. थैंक यू.
Thank you, ma'am. We now request our director, Ms. Bharti Tolambia, to present the vote of thanks.
Honorable keynote speaker, Ms. Sunita Narayan, guest of honor, Ms. Aruna Roy, honorary mentor, Mr. Anupam Martins, members of the governing body of St. Stephen's School Society, Ajmer, distinguished guests, friends, and well-wishers of St. Stephen's. On behalf of the management, staff, and students of St. Stephen's Senior Secondary School, Ajmer, I express my gratitude to Ms. Sunita Narayan for delivering the keynote address at the 22nd Dr. Mrs. Deepa Martin's Memorial Lecture. You have inspired us to start as student activists through your own example and the deep sense behind tree conservation and the historic Chipko movement. You have contextualized climate change for us and helped us identify the role we can play. Common atmospheric space, equal entitlement, and principles of equity and justice will lead us to sustainability in the truest sense. This conversation today will go a long way in inspiring our students towards understanding the holistic dimension of the reality of climate change. Inspired by your work, we have chosen the theme of sustainability through this academic year, and we hope to become more responsible and environmentally conscious citizens for decades to come. I would also like to specially thank Ms. Aruna Roy. We value your continued commitment of co-hosting this memorial lecture with us each year. Your work continues to inspire us all year round as we aspire to cultivate skills of good citizenship in our students. We appreciate your taking time out to be with us this morning despite your hectic travel schedule. I would also like to express our sincere gratitude to all the well-wishers of St. Stephen's for being with us physically and virtually this morning. We look forward to your continued guidance and encouragement in the future. In the end, I once again thank Ms. Sunita Narayan. Ma'am, it has been a privilege to have you with us. We will cherish this association with you. I thank the members of the governing body and guests for their inspiring presence. Thank you all once again and have a great day ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. You are requested to rise for the national anthem.
All the guests are invited to tea in the Sri Gilroy Martins Memorial Block. We thank you all for your gracious presence.